So what Chris has pulled up here is Alaska. That's the name of the software. And this is for commanding and controlling the REAPR system that's up in the air. So this is remotely connected over that backhaul link to the bird that's running the racetrack right now. And Alaska, what it's doing right now is it's in a passive mode monitoring GSM traffic. All right. So when it's monitoring GSM traffic, what it's doing is it's looking at all the different base stations that are in its area and all the different channels on those base stations. And the whole concept behind doing full exploitation on GSM is for us to understand what the GSM network looks like so that we can configure ourselves up in the air to be a realistic looking GSM base station. So that phones, they see us and they like us and they want to register with us and use us as their service, not knowing that we're not really a service provider. So we give them a really high quality signal. They come over to us and we can capture their unique identifier information known as an MZ. From that MZ, once we have that ID, we can interact with it. For those that aren't on our target list of MZs, we can reject them back to the network and they're none the wiser and they continue to have service. And that disruption is only a few milliseconds. So that's what we're going to do when we begin to capture phones. And that's what I call a registration. The mode that we capture phones in is called interrogation. So we interrogate to capture phones. And once they're captured, we can interact with them, such as denying service calls, sending SMS messages, and doing geolocation. I'd like to actually have two volunteers. I'd like to have two volunteers, someone from the crowd that might want to come up and make some phone calls. And you might want to point it towards the cell towers. Okay, so we got a phone call. Just have a conversation amongst yourselves. Act like you know each other. So what you're hearing, and I'll take them out of the spotlight for a minute. That was obviously much more awkward for you than it is for me right here, right? We're monitoring. We're passively monitoring the cell network. We're picking up the cell activity calls. That also helps in the communication process as well. You guys can hang up. If you're done talking, I don't want to interrupt. All right, so what you saw there was the REAPR. How far downrange are we? Look at that map for me. It's light green. It's so much easier to see if you're at the operator terminal. We're at about 6.6 kilometers out right now. We're kind of at the closest point in that, but that's not a problem. That cell tower is relatively weak to what we are, way up in the air. So we can monitor traffic pretty well when we're at 6,000 feet altitude. So we're listening in on their calls to that GSM base station passively. We're not interrupting, doing anything active right now, but that's what we're going to move to. Okay, so now we are actively transmitting. We are acting like a base station, and we're going to be looking for different phones to register with us. So all of these phones say, hey, that's a really good looking tower. I'm going to register with that tower. And for all those in the back that can't see, in the front that can't see, there's a column right here that says MZ, and that lets us see the unique IDs of the phones. From here, if they're in our target list, we can hold them onto our network and keep them on us so that we can interact with them. But if they're not on our target list, we release them back, catch and release. Well, now that we've captured a few phones and we're holding them onto our network, we're going to start interacting with them. So I'm going to interact with the gray phone over here. Go ahead and try to make a call. Now, spoiler alert.
Any number here.
You can call any number you want. You can call any number. Yeah, call your own phone. And we'll get that number right up on the screen once you do. That's great. Maybe somebody you don't like. It's whatever. I'm kidding. So he's going to try to make a call, and the spoiler is it's not going to go through. It's connected to us as a base station, and we don't provide any service to the outside network. We're going to deny his call, and he's going to get a message on his phone, and he's going to read that message to us once it fails to go through. It says loud, so that's just the normal setting. So it's not even, the call has already failed. Yeah, so it was trying to get network service. We denied it. Okay, so let's go ahead and connect to 062. And let's send a SMS message. Say, this is the gray Nokia. You can enter in whatever caller ID you want and say, Hey, can't talk now, busy doing a demo. Did you get a text message?
Can't talk now, busy doing a demo.
That's right. That was from us. Okay, so we've shown you now active denial of service against specific devices. This isn't a blanket denial of service. We're not denying anybody else's cell phones. You can look at your cell phones, you've got service. It's only against specific phones that we are actively interrogating. We showed denial of service on the call, but then we showed interacting through SMS. I want to switch gears a bit now. I want to go to do some push-to-talk things, if that's okay with you, Chris. So now that we have the monitoring app up and running, I'll show you a few of the different push-to-talks that we can use here and how it works. So I've got two Baofeng push-to-talks, and I have a Hytera DMR. The Hytera DMR is keyed for 457.1 megahertz. So Chris is looking at 457.1 area right now. So when I key up, and I'm transmitting right now, this is me transmitting on 457.1, we can actually see in the application that it was active and it was detected. So I'm going to pause right there, and you can go ahead and play that. In the application that it was active and it was detected. You know, in my head, I have a lot deeper voice. So when I hear on those speakers, they're lacking in bass. Now we'll move to a different technology on a different frequency range. These are two Baofeng push-to-talk radios. One is on 467.2 megahertz, and one is on 467.225 megahertz. So they're separated by 25 kilohertz, and that's important. Remember that number. We're going to go ahead and switch to jam. So we're going to start jamming some radios. So Chris is going to load up an application here for us to deny service to the different radios. Okay. This is a big piece of the project, was to show that we could precision jam radios. We don't want to be another broadband jammer that denies us the ability to use our Blue Force radios. And so I mentioned earlier, what's the frequency difference between these radios? 25 kilohertz, that's right, 25 kilohertz. So that was a requirement on our contract to show that we could jam something precisely without disrupting a radio 25 kilohertz away. So that's why I've configured these to be 25 kilohertz away. Okay, go ahead. In here. And you'll hear that one jam. See, he's still jamming. I'm losing signal. So can you hear that? Can you hear that he's talking? You don't believe me. You don't believe me, do you? You don't know? You want to come over closer and listen? I think I'm losing him if I go over here. And this is just on the terrestrial network. Okay. There's another question in the back.
And that push-to-talk that you're capturing, what's your range right now from the radios to the air vehicle?
So we are, again, about 6.5 kilometers out right now.
Able to capture that?
And we're able to capture that. In our testing, when we were doing the range testing, how far out were we capturing the radio? We were about 40 miles out when we captured it and when we jammed it. We could have gone further, honestly, we ran out of time. Now what I'd like to do is move to TDOA-based geolocation. So Chris is going to pull up something called Nimble Eagle. Has anybody heard of Nimble Eagle? You have a hand in the back? I'm sure you have. Has anybody heard of JICD 4.2, 4.21? We have a hand over here. So this is the it is the worldwide network of geolocation and SIGINT and SIGINT sensors, really. So the idea behind, and this is a government system, the idea behind it is that if your sensor is compliant with the JICD 4.2 standard, you can send information to this GOTS software, and you can interact with heterogeneous sensors from other developers. So it doesn't have to be one of our sensors, it can be anybody else's that's JICD 4.2 compliant. And if you're in an area of operations, and if you all hear the same signal, just from your one spot, you can send that signal back to a server that will use your different locations and your positions and how you heard the signal to geolocate where that signal came from. So it is a global network of SIGINT sensors. So what I'm going to show you are where our sensors are. So we've got, this one is right up here on the airfield, just right down there by the ground control station. That's one sensor. we've got the other sensor about halfway down to that GSM base station. We have another sensor down by C17, which I pointed out earlier. And then we have the aircraft, which you can see moving here. And again, that's all, you know, according to this map here, you can see the aircraft, you can see our node, and our node. So these are essentially 4 nodes because they're all JICD 4.2 compliant. So Chris, what he's going to do is he's going to key them up to listen to a frequency such as 457.1, which is this encrypted Hytera right here. So we're going to try to use this application to geolocate where this radio is. Okay, so we're getting a lot of geos now that are looking a lot better. And that happens with time, right? I mean, as you observe signals over time, you get more and more readings, you learn more, you know more, you can begin to see where things cluster. And I see 2 clusters. I'll be honest with you, I see a cluster here, I see a big cluster here, and I also see a cluster here. And I think that it would be fair, just for sake of this demonstration, let's look at this cluster here. Let's say we looked at that one and we didn't see anything that was interesting. So we're going to go to the second cluster that we see. This is the second cluster. Let's pick one kind of in the middle there. Grab a spot, Chris, and we're going to send that over to the ground control station. 33.3396.
33.3396.
Then neg 114. .3026.
Negative 114.3026.
That's correct. So he's entered it in. They're swinging around to look at the position that we provided. So you can see him panning right now. He's kind of been cued and he's looking along this road, maybe hoping that he sees something. Well, maybe they've given me some type of error. I would look at that. That looks interesting to me. That's not us, by the way. We're here. But this is a real demo. None of this is canned. And so they don't have answers to our test. So that is him? So did we have our target in the wrong spot on the map? So that is not a bush. That's actually it's actually a vehicle.
I'll have him start driving.
Yeah, have him start driving. I was looking here. So let's see if he moves. Coming this fall to CBS. Is it a bush or not? Oh wait, there we go. So there you go. So we heard, we geolocated, we looked, we saw, I thought we didn't see, then we did see, and now we track. That's the power of the REAPR system.